Have you ever been in front of your computer to write a story and you're just blank? Nothing comes out. You can't even type one sentence. Everything feels like glue, and if you force yourself, it's almost painful. That's writer's block. And it sucks. But the thing that doesn't suck is that this video is going to help you get out of it, or even better, not get into it at all. So that's my week's thoughts. There's many different takes on writer's block. Is it real? Is it fake? I'm leaning onto the side that it's kind of not a thing, but that's so frustrating when it obviously does. People clearly suffer from it. It's annoying when people don't acknowledge it. And I do, but I just think there's ways around it. You don't need to have writer's block. For me, it's just an illusion. You can still write. In your brain, you probably have stories enough to fill a whole library. Well, how do you fix it? First, I think you have to identify the reason you're having a writer's block. For me, there is like 3 modes of having writer's block. That's creative, technical, and at last, the most common and destructive mode, fear. The first mode, a creative block. You have no freaking idea. You don't have that spark. Everything you come up with just seems to be boring. You're critical of yourself and you don't get moving. So what can we do here? I think the best way to treat this type of mode is to become a consumer, become the audience for a while. Read books, watch movies, television, listen to music, and try to pick up on things you like and dislike. Suddenly you should get your cog spinning. Here I would just really start stealing stuff. Things you like. Steal some plot structure, steal a character, and just think, what would I write with this character? If you love Harry Potter, take Hagrid as a character, change his name, put him into another setting, let's say action, and see what happens. And just think, what story would I have written? What would I make happen? And suddenly you have kind of a story with a gentle giant in action setting where he doesn't want to hurt anyone. I don't know. Anything can work. Rinse and repeat this process until you're back on track. And if you're still stuck, then I would really advise you to go talk to someone else. Try to collab with someone. Try to write a screenplay with someone. If it's a book, you could just brainstorm with a friend or another writer. So find a person who is creative and just talk to them. Try to spin ideas together. And I think that person's energy will likely spark something in you. The second mode, a technical writer's block, is something everyone who writes long enough will experience. And it's not because you don't have the spark or the energy, it's just because you're actually stuck. It's like a math problem and you don't know the answer. And this is fine. There's nothing wrong about experiencing this. It's just you can't let this stop you. You have to keep on going. So if this blocks you for a month because you just don't know how to solve it and you get discouraged, then it's a big problem. An example of a technical writer's block is when you're stuck with an ending. You just don't know how you're gonna wrap everything up, or you're written yourself into a corner. The characters are surrounded by enemies and there's literally no way out of the room. But I think the solution is really simple. First of all, you can brainstorm different ways to resolve the situation and pick the one you like the best. And if even brainstorming solutions is difficult, I would write anything that would get the story going. Like with the example of the main characters being stuck, cornered by enemies. And you have a hard time getting them out of the situation. Just get them out, just cheat. Just create the way. I would just have a secret door there and give the main character a key in his pocket. And suddenly he picks it up, opens the door, and they escape. It will be bad. It won't be a satisfying solution to the problem, but it will keep you going. And yeah, it doesn't make any sense. You know, it's really convenient, and you would never have that piece of shit in your final story. But that's the point. It's just to keep you going, to write that story. And then in the revision, in the second draft or the third draft, you can then fix it. And by the time you come back to that scene in the rewrites, your subconsciousness have been working on that scene. And you'll probably have a much more elegant way to resolve it. Or maybe you'll just work with it, just like foreshadow the key. Maybe his father or mother gave him the key, and you can make a whole plot thing out of it. Often what will happen is that maybe you realize you don't even need that scene, and then there was nothing to worry about anyways. So that's what I would do. Just cheat, just make up something. It doesn't need to be good, and you can fix it later. And it's kind of the same with endings, wrapping up a story. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. Just write something. Write any ending. And if you think it's hard to commit to an ending, you can write several ones. Then you just start on the rewrite. And when you get to the ending, I'll guarantee you'll know if you like it or not. And it's much easier to make that judgment than it is to come up with the perfect ending the first time around. Then we're at the third one, the fear-based writer's block, the worst one. It's when you or someone else have high expectations. It may be a deadline or work, and you kind of get very self-aware. The way you think is destructive because you think what you write says something about you. You take it too personal. For example, if you write a comedy and it's not funny, you don't feel funny. If someone reads your story and they don't like it, it feels like they don't like you. It gets way too personal, and you tend to focus on being perfect. And this can probably happen to the best writers, and it might even be worse for them. Like George R. R. Martin now trying to write the last books of A Song of Ice and Fire. All that pressure he has to feel can give anyone writer's block, and it's really difficult. It's the most psychological of them all. It's so in our psyche, of not wanting to be bad, of not wanting to disappoint. Here my biggest advice is just to talk to people. Not that you have to go to therapy, but just talk with friends, with colleagues, with people who can understand what you're going through. And then you just have to lower your expectations. Like, the first draft or first idea of anything is supposed to be shit. I literally call it the fart draft. It sounds stupid, but it works. It takes the seriousness out of it. I also had times where I felt a screenplay was way too big for me to write, and then I called it a zero draft. I gave myself an extra draft before the first draft, just to take all the pressure off it. I want you to allow yourself to be bad at writing, and don't think about it. It's just, you're writing this just for you. No one needs to see it. And it can be terrible, and if everything is terrible, just chuck it. But probably there's gonna be some good stuff there that you can rewrite. And that's the thing about writing. It's all about rewriting. That's why I think writer's block are so unnecessary, because you just have to write something and then improve incrementally, build a story that eventually will become great. This is how to cope with writer's block, but how do you avoid it in the first place? I've dipped my toe into these different types of writer's block. Now I don't really have it, and that's because I take steps to avoid it. And that trick is to brainstorm a lot. Keep writing down ideas. Kind of have a shop for yourself with all these different ideas you have. So a lot of brainstorming, and then set limitations kind of before you start writing anything. Either it's about structure or where it's supposed to happen. It has to happen in this one room, or it has to be this journey, or this person has to be killed in the end. And I put several rules down for myself. And I just feel that this helps immensely, because especially in the beginning, just starting something new with writing can feel very overwhelming. There's so much to write about. There's endless opportunities. So that can make you freeze up and make it difficult to write, and it can give you writer's block. I'm editing a film right now, and the nice thing about editing a film is that you only work with what you got. So you get some material, you get film, and you have to make a story. There is a screenplay and all of that, but there's many different ways to cut the film together. But it's so easy to start editing because you already have a lot of stuff. You have a lot of source material to just work with. You can't decide you want to have another shot because it's already filmed. So that freedom of the limitations you get in the cutting room is really nice, and I think you can do something similar with writing a story. It's more arbitrary, but still it limits you. You can just decide on rules. I think that's a great way to loosen up. I hope some of this helped you, and if it did, please like and subscribe to learn more about writing and just my thoughts on mostly films, but storytelling in general. So have yourself a nice week, and I'll see you in the next one.